Did it? Oh, God. Oh, welcome to the Candray Institute where sterile processing excellence is delivered. We are on class 13.
What do you think about all the?
I'm not going to bore y'all with the technical problems I have today. I'm looking at it as a journey at this point. But as y'all can see, I'm in another new location. So let's see how it goes. Then I caught myself trying to make the link earlier, but I made it on an accident. I put it as mobile.
Yeah, Ozempic and all that stuff.
And not from the computer. So I don't know why I didn't have it, but I'm not going to fuss that right now. Okay. I don't see nobody yet. I'm gonna say okay at this point. My fear is I'm gonna go ahead and try to do those right now while I'm sitting here. And hopefully y'all are getting notified. Okay, there's Brienne. Hi, Brienne. It's telling me there's 0 people in here. So I wasn't sure. Who we got up there? Hello. All right, I see 2. Okay, I'm gonna give it a few more minutes so people can find it. Hi, Chrisette. And then I'm gonna go make these other. I'm gonna attempt to make the links for the last couple of classes. I tried. Wait, what's this? That's a go live. I tried setting it up from my phone today, and that was a mistake because what it did was it locked me into having to go from my mobile device. And then y'all know I use that for the TikTok folks. So when I got here and I clicked on live, it was like, yeah, no, it's not happening. But as y'all can see, I am in another new location. So I'm praying that at least our Wi Fi will hold today. And if this works, then I'll come back here for the last couple of sessions. All right. So let me get our notes up. What chapter are y'all on with the reading and the flashcards? Y'all know I'm about to ask. That's 13 and 14. Here we go. There we go. 21. Okay, 21. We finished chapter 17 on Monday, yes? We got to get into 18. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, we're going to do that. All right, so chapter 21, you almost done, girl. You almost done. Look at this is all we have left, guys. So we started and this is all we have left. How awesome. Chapters 19 for Chrisette. All right. Let me find my little notebook so I can keep my little notebook. That requires a pen. Right? You're almost done with it. So hopefully you guys are keeping up with your flashcards as well and studying those. I'll say at least 15 minutes a day. But I mean, of course, you guys are big kids. You can manage yourselves. But every day I would take a look and flip through those because the more you read them, the more it's going to get ingrained into your brain what the definitions of those words are. And I promise you, it's going to help you on the exam. All right, 326. I got Brienne and Chris said, beautiful. And Brienne is on 21. Okay, awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So Monday, I had planned on getting through chapter 17 and 18, but y'all was there. Y'all know what happened. We're not gonna go back through it. Hopefully today, this location will work better for us. Um, so far, the only technical issues I've had are from myself because I didn't realize I haven't. This is new to me using the YouTube Studio. I've always been doing it from StreamYard, so learning curve, but I'm getting it. I'm getting it, and I do have some time today to stay over. So if y'all have questions or need anything from me, I'll be here for that. Otherwise, I'm gonna stay over in this room and just get the remainder of our links set up for the live so that I know at least that's done, and y'all can go ahead and click on whatever you need to click on so that it notifies you. All right. Let's get into it. So, chapter 18 is over quality assurance. And y'all, did I cover any of chapter 18 on Monday? I feel like I'm about to start repeating myself. But remember, I told you now that we're getting towards the end of this book, these terms are going to start becoming repetitive. All right, so I'm gonna act as if I didn't because I don't know, I don't remember. All right, so chapter 18 is over quality assurance essential service. By the time we get to the end of this chapter, we should be able to define the quality of an item, right? So we're not just producing any old thing. We want to make sure that it actually has quality to it, and what those components of quality are. Because right, it might be different for me than it is for you. So we'll talk about what that looks like inside of the central service department or the sterile processing department. We're going to explain process improvement and its role in sterile processing, identify control indicators and monitoring methods, describe the role of cross-functional teams in quality assurance. You guys will hear cross-functional. So I was worried. What was you worried about? I think everything is coming up a little delay for me. What was you worried about, dear? We're going to discuss methodologies such as the Six Sigma and the ISO 9000 standards in sterile processing. We're going to explain quality assurance practices in different central processing areas, right? Because we have Digitown, processing, sterile storage, sterilization. So our quality metrics might look different depending on what room we're working in. What happened with it? Yes, child. It was all me. I tried to book it as a mobile, and it was supposed to be for the computer. And I pressed live, and it said, "No, this is not a mobile device." So now that I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm gonna sit right here and get the rest of them scheduled, so y'all don't have that problem. Because I know y'all probably sick of me in my IT department. My IT department, child. Okay, and then lastly, we want to discuss best practices for maintaining quality in the central service department. Okay, so real quick, before we get all into the details, let's give a quick definition of what quality is. So, quality is the degree to which a product or a service meets established standards and customer expectations. In sterile processing, this means delivering safe, functional, and sterile instruments to patient care, right? Your surgeon, your nurse, your scrub tech, your procedure room tech, they all expect for you to be delivering them a quality of a product that has a standard attached to it. And that standard is going to look like it's clean and intact. It's actually sterile. It's labeled properly. It's been stored properly, right? So inside of your healthcare system, there's an established understanding of what quality looks like. So components of quality. And these might be components that you end up tracking in some way, but they're definitely going to be things that you're always visually looking for. Now we're talking about number one is the effectiveness. So we want to ensure that our sterilization process eliminates microorganisms. We've done all that up to this point, right? We've of getting to sterile storage. We have received it in decontam. We've cleaned it. We've reduced the microbial load. We brought it to process and we checked it to make sure it works properly. We took it to sterilization, had it all wrapped up perfect, ready for them to go with our internal and our external chemical indicators. We put our process challenge device on the sterilizer cycle and we press start. Now I'm able to look at my printout. I'm able to look at that process and say that my sterilization process was effective at eliminating microorganisms. Efficiency. Achieving quality outcomes with minimal waste and resources. Okay, so of course, you guys are going to have resources available to you in the hospital, but everything in there, just like everything out here, costs money. So we want to do our work effectively and efficiently. Consistency, maintaining high standards across all processes and shifts. I think about this like I think about the airline industry right now. When we buy a ticket for the airline, we expect consistency. When we don't get consistency, hey Latoya, when we don't get consistency as a consumer, we start to get concerned, right? So it's going to be the same thing for your departments. If you stop delivering consistently good product, they're going to start to get concerned about you. They're going to be whispering in the hallways about how sterile processing can never, ever, ever get it right. Okay, they're gonna be calling somebody and saying, I'm starting to lose faith in that department because every so often I get a package that does not, it's not the way that I expected it to be. So consistency is key. Safety, of course, is at the bedrock of everything we do. So we're reducing risk for patients and healthcare workers by maintaining quality systems. And then lastly, compliance. Compliance, compliance, compliance. You guys are always required to be compliant with regulatory and accreditation requirements, right? That should be a dead horse at this point. I've talked about the Joint Commission, CMS, ARN, AMI, EPA, CDC, Transportation Department. You have all of these folks that have regulatory requirements for you to hit, and you must always be in compliance with them and or talking about how you're going to get in compliance with them. Welcome in, Latoya. Drop for me in the chat where you're at with the reading and flashcards there. All right, process improvement in sterile processing. So we've got all these logs, right? We've got sterilization logs, we've got cleaning logs in every section of the department. We have all these readouts from these sterilization records. What are we doing with all this information? Because as a technician, your job may be as simple as you come in, and I say simple, but you guys have spent a couple of weeks with me talking about how complicated this simple thing is I'm about to say. Yeah. Chapter 10. Okay, dear. All right. So as a technician, a sterile technician, 1, 2, 3 even, you may be in a position where all you're doing is coming into the department and going to your assigned area, whether that's decontamination, instrument processing, sterilization, sterile storage, case carts, instrument transport, wherever that may be. You may never be responsible for participating in process improvement, but also you may be asked to participate in process improvement. Okay, so all of this, of course, the vocabulary is going to be on your exam, and I want you to pay attention to that. But all of this is something that isn't necessarily about the core of your job, but what you can do to take your position to the next level. Okay, so process improvement definition. Process improvement is a systemic approach to identify and analyzing and improving processes to enhance quality, efficiency, and safety in sterile processing. What are the steps for process improvement? First, we want to identify that we have a problem, right? We're recognizing that there are defects, delays, or failures in the workflow. What did I say about having that consistency? Okay, chapter 5 for the flashcard. You're not behind, dear. You're not behind because you're doing it on your own time. You're not behind. I'm just trying to keep track for my own records. All right. So just like any type of issue, right? If the first thing that's going to let me know we got a problem is I identified the problem. Somebody is calling to my department and telling me that the quality is going down. Or maybe the OR is calling me and they're telling me, for the last couple of days, I've been experiencing delays when I contact the department. I'm not getting my services as fast as I'm used to. Something's going to come up to let me know that there's a quality issue, right? So once I recognize the problem, the next thing I want to do is analyze the root causes. If you're the type of person that looks like this for you, where you go, oh, there's a problem. I know what to do. And then I just do it. Healthcare is not for you because they move much slower when it comes to process improvement. The next thing we want to do is analyze all the root causes. So we're going to be using tools such as cause and effect diagrams, maybe some process mapping. It might look as simple as you going and following your tray, right? So if ER is calling you and they're telling you that I'm not getting my pill packs on time, maybe you start following those instruments through decontaminant processing and sterilization and sterile storage and start to see if you can figure out what is causing there to be a hiccup. It could be something like maybe the instrument barcode is missing. And so when the instrument gets received and decontaminated, it gets clean because we know it's dirty. But then it gets to the processing side and they don't have a way to identify it. So they just don't. And now it's been sitting on the shelf for 2 weeks. And ER is calling saying, where's my stuff? Seems like everything's moving slow down there, right? So if I'm walking through that process, I'll be able to identify root causes. Next, when you identify those root causes, you want to implement corrective actions, right? So we've talked about this a little bit before when we discussed what you guys are going to do when you run into a piece of equipment that's not working properly, right? Your eye wash station isn't flushing right, your sterilizer ain't working right. You have to note that on your logs and then call somebody. Put in a facilities work order or call your supervisor, right? You're never just walking away from a problem. So the same thing with this, we have to implement a corrective measure. So I figured out what the problem was. My instrument doesn't have a name on it. Therefore, when it gets to processing, it's not getting picked up. Now I need to talk about what am I going to do? Well, maybe I'm going to remove that instrument from service and have it go to my technician that's responsible for barcoding my instruments. Maybe it needs to go off to the manager's office so the manager can take care of that. It's going to be different workflows for different facilities, but essentially the same process as far as making sure that the corrective measure gets put into place. So that could look like adjusting procedures. We might find that it's an education issue. Maybe the instrument did have a tag on it, but the staff are just not familiar with it. So now my corrective action might look like doing training in the department, right? So it might look like adjusting procedures, training staff, or updating technology. All kinds of things can come into play. It could be something as simple as hanging a sign, but you did something to try to make sure that that issue doesn't continue to arise. And then lastly, when it comes to process improvement, one of the most important things, besides actually identifying that you have a problem, is monitoring the outcome. Because you don't want to put a corrective measure in place and then tell everybody that it's all good, y'all. Y'all not going to have that problem no more, ER. Y'all got to have to call me no more. And then we find out that actually you missed something in that process. Like this did help, but there's something else that's still hanging it up because you're not monitoring that process. You don't know, right? So one of the most important components of process improvement is that you monitor the outcomes, you measure the improvements, and you make sure that they're actually meeting the goal that you wanted them to meet. All right. One of the ways that this gets done very frequently in the healthcare system is by doing what they call a cross-functional team, or sometimes you might hear them called a multidisciplinary team. Essentially, what cross-functional teams or multidisciplinary teams are is they consist of personnel from various departments. So instead of me just saying SPD recognize that we have a problem with ER, I might bring in people from the ER department to be on my team to do this process improvement and to analyze the root causes, to make suggestions for implementation on corrective action. That way I make sure that I'm getting all sides and perspectives. There may be something that the emergency room staff see that I don't ever see because I'm not there. There might be something that I think is a good idea to put in place but might mess something up on their end, right? So being able to have these cross-functional or multidisciplinary teams is really something that healthcare uses quite a bit, right? And the goal of them is to work together to improve quality and patient safety. The benefits of cross-functional teams: one, you get collaboration, so you're enhancing communication between departments. You guys will find if you work in the SPD department, show of hands, is anybody already working in the department? I think I had one person that was, but what you will find working in the SPD is it's kind of like working in the nutrition department. And you guys can think of it as if you were working in nutrition, you would go to the nutrition department, you would cook back there, and you would serve your food in the cafeteria. You don't really have to go anywhere else. Unless you're one of the techs that has to deliver food to the floors, you don't have to leave nutrition. It's really the same way in a lot of times with SPD. If you are in a sterile processing department, all your work is going to be taking place inside the department. So you're not somebody that's going to be getting out and into all of these other departments very frequently. So having these cross-functional teams might be some of the only times that you communicate with the other people that you service. So that collaboration is key, and it goes a long way to enhance communication. Problem solving. These teams address quality concerns from multiple perspectives. They are efficient because you're streamlining workflows to reduce errors and rework, right? So if I bring up something and somebody in the ER tell me that they already tried that 17 years ago, let's not bring it back, right? I'm not wasting my time reinventing the wheel. And then lastly, accountability. It is ensuring that shared responsibility for maintaining quality, right? You have somebody that knows what the goal is. You have somebody that knows what the deliverables are and know when the things are supposed to come. You guys are responsible to one another, and you're also responsible for maintaining the quality of the healthcare system overall. Okay, so quality control indicators in sterile processing. How do you know that there's quality? The same way that we do those internal and external sterile processing chemical and biological indicators, we're going to have some indicators that let us know if things are going all right in the department or they're not going so great. So definition of quality control indicators. Quality control indicators are measurable elements used to evaluate the effectiveness of sterile processing procedures. Measurable is the key term here. Measurable will also be a key term when it comes to process improvement audits, because whatever it is that you're monitoring, you will have to monitor it in a way that you can calculate, right? So it might be numbers of beds or numbers of trays or hours of service, but it's some way that you can measure it. Common quality control indicators in SPD, sterilization monitoring, right? So I've belabored biological, chemical, and physical indicators. When it comes to tray assembly and accuracy, we want to make sure that the correct instrument placement is taking place inside of our trays, right? So when we went over the processing section, we talked about the fact that your tray or your surgical set or your surgical pack, they have different names, same thing. That it comes with what we call a set list or a pack list or a recipe. That recipe is going to include all of the surgical instruments that are required for that tray, as well as their quantities. One of the easiest ways for you to have a quality control indicator for a tray is to have a count sheet with it, because I can easily look at it and see there's 2 of 2, 3 of 3, 5 of 5. If I see 3 of 5, I know that something is off. I also know that it should be having a missing sticker on it, right? Because we talked about that. But that's a way for me to talk about and show and measure tray assembly accuracy. Now, something down the line, like in a leadership position, I might look at that and see how many of my trays are 100% complete. And maybe that number, like let's say 79% of my trays are 100% complete. Now that's something I can measure first and foremost, right? And if I have a goal of increasing my quality by increasing the percentage on my completeness of my trays, that's something that I can show over time. Okay, we ordered some instruments. That was my corrective action. We put them in a tray. Now my trays are 83% complete, right? And I'm able to demonstrate to my leadership that we're making progress on our goal. Decontamination effectiveness. You're going to be verifying proper cleaning and disinfection through chemical and biological indicators. You will have logs, so that's another quality control indicator. Turnaround time. This is probably going to be the biggest one for you as a technician on the floor, is turnaround time. Now, when we talk about turnaround time, we're talking about, I would love it if somebody could drop it in the chat if y'all know, because we talked about this before. But when we talk about turnaround time, that is how long it takes you to get that surgical instrument set that was just used in a procedure area cleaned, processed, and sterilized, and returned back to that procedure area or back to that sterile storage, okay? The time that it takes, the life cycle of a tray, would be your turnaround time. You can measure the efficiency in sterile processing workflows by looking at that. So same like using that ER example that we talked about earlier. If I see that typically I receive my ER instruments at 7 p.m. in the evenings because they leave and that's what time they go home, but it takes me until 7 p.m. in the evening the next day to get their instruments back, that might be something that I want to take a look at and see if there's a way that I can decrease that turnaround time and get those instruments back to them faster. It also with turnaround time, it's a time measure that's going to tell a story for you guys in SPD. It will come up for you very often when it comes to the OR, because remember those examples I gave of we have multiple instrument trays needed back to back. It comes out of case 1. I have to turn it around and get it ready for case 3 or case 4. The turnaround time there might be something that I measure to see if there's a way for me to become more efficient. That time might also tell a story to say that no, actually, no, you are doing as much as you can with this instrumentation that you have. And if you want to decrease the turnaround time, you're going to have to increase the inventory, right? So that number could be used to tell multiple types of stories. And then the last one on here is instrument repair rates. So tracking the damage and the replacement frequency of instrumentation. Same thing as turnaround time. If I'm looking at that number and I'm seeing that there's certain instrumentation I have that is going out for repair over and over and over again, I might want to take that back as a problem for my process improvement team and have them start looking at the root causes of that. Maybe it's a handling issue. Folks are not being gentle with a flexible scope. Or maybe it's a rep issue where my reps are dropping things and things are getting broken. It could be a million things. Maybe somebody sterilized it on the wrong cycle. I don't know. But for whatever reason, we're seeing an increase in things that have to go out and be repaired. So that number, just like turnaround time, would be a number that can tell different types of stories in the department. It could indicate a quality control issue in a myriad of ways. Okay. So quality control methodologies in central service. I only listed 2, but to be honest with you, there's as many as you can possibly dream of. Your facility is always looking for process improvement methodologies. They are constantly checking in with universities, other industries. Like we frequently look at the airline industry, we frequently look at the car, like the parts industry, and how do they produce and manufacture the same thing efficiently and with high quality. We want to mimic that. But 2 of the ones that I think you'll run into the most often is Six Sigma. So if you guys are not familiar with Six Sigma, it's a data-driven approach to reducing errors and improving processes by eliminating variation. And Six Sigma is done in levels, almost like you think about it like karate, where they have a purple belt and a white belt and all these different things. With Six Sigma, there are different levels that go by color, and the point of it is to train you to utilize Six Sigma as a system. So some of the key concepts, and this will not necessarily be on your quiz. I just want you guys to be aware of this. Because I would also say if you can find a place to do your Six Sigma training for free before you get into healthcare or even while you're there, take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. Okay, because it's something that is recognized inside and outside of the healthcare industry. And once you have the certifications, you can throw them on your resume just like your CRCST. All right, so key concepts, they have the DMAIC process. This is define, measure, analyze, improve, control, right? Looks very similar to our process improvement that we just looked at, right? So they want you to identify the problem, measure the root causes, analyze them, put something in to improve or put a corrective action, and then control and monitor. They're going to talk to you about reducing defects. A defect is anything that happens that was not a part of your quality plan. Okay, so reducing defects, Six Sigma aims for a 3.4 defects per million opportunities. It's just another way to measure how often something is happening. And then it's application and sterile processing. We usually use Six Sigma process improvement methodologies in the effort to reduce errors in the sterile processing or in instrument processing, in tracking defects and improving workflow. Defects in the sterile processing industry can look like missing instruments on a tray that were not identified as missing. Could look like compromises to sterility packaging that should not be there, right? If it's on the sterile storage shelf, I shouldn't see a hole in the wrap, right? I shouldn't see water sitting on top of the case. So a defect could be, like I said, a myriad of things. It's just, did that tray show up the way that we had set the standard? Yes or no? If it didn't, it was a defect. What kind of defect? And measuring. For you guys in SPD, that might look like you just reporting that you found a problem, right? Of course, you're going to report if you're missing instruments because there's a process for that in your processing side. But also, if you were to, find something to be broken or ripped or torn or, just damaged in any kind of way, you should report that. Then the other methodology I put up here was ISO 9000 standards. This is a set of international standards for quality management and assurance. Your ISO standards, you will hear about them a little bit because ISO standards get used in a lot of healthcare systems to develop policies and procedures similar to those AMI standards or those ANSI standards. So you will hear about them, but unless you guys go looking for them to read them, I promise you this will be the first and the last time anybody talks to you about ISO, okay? So ISO 9000 standards is international. AMI and ANSI are national bodies. ISO is an international body, look, an international cross-functional team or international multidisciplinary team. So we got doctors, we've got nurses, we've got SPD techs, we've got engineers, we've got HVAC specialists, we've got biomedical engineering. All these people are coming together to create these different standards, and we use those to create our policies, right? Because remember, we cannot validate, we can only verify. All right, so ISO 9001 certification. This requires organizations to conduct quality processes and track information and implement continuous improvement processes. So just like with AMI, when I talked about it before, if the hospital is implementing their standards, then they have to adhere to what it is that they want them to do. So if we're going to use ISO standards in our policies, then we also have to adhere to the fact that ISO requires us to document our process improvement efforts. It's a part of our certification. If they come in there, somebody come in there and survey you and you don't have it, guess what you lose? You lose your certification. Application and sterile processing. What this does is it ensures traceability and compliance of all issues, and it also it helps increase the consistency in instrumentation and sterilization. If I'm tracking these quality measures, then I by and large should be able to say that my department is doing fairly well. I should see that my consistency of my product matches. All right. Quality in central serving processing areas. So we're going to go section by section and what our quality focus would be. So decontamination, quality focus. You're going to focus on proper PPE to ensure worker safety. You guys did a great job of that when I asked you what was going on with me in that decontam room. Y'all was quick with it, missing our PPE. You come into the room, like let's say y'all wasn't watching me on video, y'all was actually in decontam with me. You open the door and you see with your eyes that I do not have on PPE. You are currently conducting quality control. Because the next thing out your mouth better be, excuse me, Alessandra, you're missing your PPE. It's for your safety, okay? You're also going to be focused on the correct detergent concentrations and water temperature monitoring, right? So we don't want to be cleaning instrumentation with detergent that is not diluted properly. That means it's not working to its highest efficiency. We also don't want to be working with detergents that don't have the right temperature because it means that they're not working to their highest efficiency. There is no sense in you putting something into a sink of detergent and scrubbing it off and acting like it's clean when you haven't observed that the detergent is concentrated right and that the water temperature is correct. Right, so we talked about this with those bottles. We're going to flip it over to the back and we're going to see that it takes a half an ounce of detergent for 5 gallons of water. And then you better make sure that you get that right concentration. We're also going to be looking at verification of cleaning effectiveness. Now, this could be done through what we call ATP testing or soil markers. I don't think I've talked to you guys about ATP testing yet, but you definitely should have come across it in your book. So ATP testing is another control indicator that you can do that provides a protein test of your surfaces in your decontam or in any area of the hospital, honestly. They come in a little handheld machine. You will swab something down. You'll stick it into the machine and it'll let you know what all kind of bugs you have. Essentially, what's your microbial load? Was this wiped down and disinfected by EBS? Yes or no? Okay, we monitor that, and a lot of times with SPD, we monitor that in what we call high touch areas. So my door handles, my phone handles, anything that everybody's going to be touching all the time, we will do ATP testing on it to see if we're cleaning it effectively. We also may do ATP testing on surgical instruments themselves, right? We've run them through the cleaning process and we do an ATP test at the end to see if our washer is doing what it said it was going to do. Okay. We might do that test one tray a week, one tray a day. It's just going to look like it's just going to look different at each one of your facilities. They may do no ATP testing at all, also. I think it's fairly common now, but you might land somewhere where they don't look at it at all. All right, so we're out of decontam. We're going into that prep and pack area. Some quality focuses are going to be ensuring that your instrument sets are correctly assembled and functional. That's your main job in the processing area. Are all the surgical instruments in that set accounted for, and do they work? Because if they don't, they should not be in that package. You're also going to make sure that you're using the appropriate wrapping and packaging method to maintain sterility, right? We talked about this during the sterilization chapter. If I take those instruments and I wrap them in the wrong type of product and I put them in a sterilizer that's not compatible, it's the same as trying to clean instruments with a detergent that's not concentrated properly. You're wasting everybody's time. They're not going to be able to use that. You're going to have to take it out and wrap it up again and run it all over. And then lastly, in the prep and pack side, you want to be verifying chemical indicators are inside of packs for exposure confirmation, okay? You're the one that's going to see it before it gets locked up. So you're doing all the checking of the instruments, making sure they work, making sure you have the right quantity. You organize them in the instrument tray so that everybody can access them great. And then you put a chemical indicator inside, close the lid, or wrap the tray. Okay, you're the one that's setting that up so that when the scrub tech is in the sterile area, they're able to open it and look without touching, because they don't know if it's sterile yet. They have to be able to look and see your chemical indicator. So you can't put your chemical indicator underneath the instruments in the tray. You got to put it on top somewhere people can see it, right? And once they open it, they're able to see that color change and they can make the determination of whether or not that tray is safe to use in their operating room and put on their back table. It happens. You don't want it to happen, but it does happen sometimes where the scrub techs don't identify before they place the instrument on the back table that it's not sterile. What happens then is now the entire back table is not sterile. Y'all saw that tray, that case card I had in that decontam. There were multiple trays in there, right? So imagine having all those trays set up and getting ready for surgery, and the last one you pulled out, you realize it's not sterile. Now you got to break down that entire back table. It's a nightmare for the operating room and for you too. All right, moving on to the sterilization area. Our quality focus in sterilization is first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're adhering to the sterilization parameters. I'm not going to belabor that. We talked about time, temperature, pressure, and sterilant concentration. Your main job as a sterilizer is to make sure that the sterilizer machines are hitting all the right parameters. You are also there to perform the routine biological testing. You're the one that's placing the PCD, the process challenge device. You're the one that's making sure that every load that gets released from the SB department is safe to handle. That is going to be a quality focus for you. You're also going to be ensuring proper sterilization loading techniques to prevent wet packs and also to make sure that the sterilizer is able to run efficiently, right? We talked about the fact that some of them might have weight limits. You also want to make sure you have enough space in between instruments so sterilant is hitting. You're going to be the one that's making sure that it got loaded properly, because once we press start, that's it. We can't do nothing else except start over and wait for that machine to get done and try to repackage those things, right? So everybody loves it when the sterilization tech is on top of their job. And then the last area, right? So we've sterilized and now we're in sterile storage and distribution. Our quality focuses are going to be maintaining sterility through proper shelving and environmental controls. We talked about that humidity, talked about air exchanges, talked about that room temperature. I'm focused on those. If they go out of range, I got to be calling somebody immediately, or I might compromise my entire sterile storage. I'm preventing contamination by following the first in and first out method of inventory rotation, right? So I think I've said that one a few times. The first things that go into the room should be the first things that come out of the room. If I bring similar items 2 weeks later, I shouldn't be pulling from those items first. I should be pulling from what I brought in 2 weeks before. And then lastly, we want to be monitoring transport conditions to maintain sterility. So transport conditions, what does that mean? That means I'm taking something from one room to the next. I need to make sure that while I'm in transport, I have everything set up in a way that's going to keep this pack sterile. Whether that looks like, that might look like, little thing said, "Girl, put this on the charger." That might look like wrapping the instrument, some type of dust cover. It might look like putting it into a case cart and closing the door. Right. So making sure that the conditions for transport maintain sterility. Hold on, y'all. My laptop said I need some juice. Any questions about any of that so far? I see y'all quiet in the chat today. They quiet in the chat. All right, hold on, y'all. I gotta reach back up. Okay. Regulatory and accrediting agencies for quality assurance. So y'all know I always let y'all know how these different regulatory bodies affect you in every area that you're in. Most of these names should be pretty familiar to you at this point. All right, no questions for you, Brianne. Okay. All right, so the Joint Commission requires hospitals to follow strict quality control procedures in sterile processing. If you have a Joint Commission certification, you must adhere to their standards. If they survey you and they find that you don't have or you're not adhering to their standards, you're not in compliance, they will cite you and they will expect for you to come up with a process improvement plan, most likely before they leave that day. Then Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation. Of course, the people that are overseeing surgical instruments have guidelines for sterilization. They have guidelines for decontamination, and they have guidelines for how we do quality monitoring. I don't think I've ever worked in the SPD department that wasn't following some type of AMI standard. Y'all need a charger too. Let me find one for y'all. So you want to make sure you're on top of that, because if not, they will revoke your ability to do what you want to do, and that will happen for you through not necessarily through AMI, but through the Joint Commission, because the Joint Commission is going to be looking at your policies, and your policies are going to be saying you follow AMI standards, and they're not going to be seeing what they need to see, and they're going to say, "Excuse me, you said you X, Y, and Z, but I don't see that. What's your plan so that I see that?" All right, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So I know I've talked about the fact that Centers for Medicaid and Medicaid Services is where a lot of hospital systems get a good chunk of their money from. So, and CMS, just like Amy, CMS is going to be looking at the Joint Commission or whatever. The Joint Commission isn't the only survey body that comes in, but it's the main one. But they're going to be looking at whoever you get your certifications through, and if you're not in compliance with them, they're going to stop the payment on all that money real fast. Okay, real fast. All right, and then lastly, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. These folks are enforcing workplace safety regulations, including chemical exposure and PPE usage. Right, so we know that they require that we have PPE so that we are protected under that bloodborne pathogen standard protocol. But they also expect for the hospitals to show them that they're buying that stuff and that they're keeping it in stock for you. They also have regulations over, like, if you get an injury, there's documentation that we have to do. So OSHA most definitely has safety regulations that we have to make sure we have quality assurance on. All right, and in the last section for this chapter, before we get into the summary, best practices for maintaining quality in central service, right? So we talked about best practices being what everybody has agreed on is the best way for us to keep patients safe. You're going to want to you want to perform routine audits, identifying areas for improvement. This can look like so many different things. Like, let's say if I'm in the processing room, if I want to, one thing I could do to perform a routine audit is to go to the sterile storage and start opening up a couple trays. Maybe once a day I go and I open 2 or 3 trays and I see what the quality is. Did the chemical indicators change? Are all the instrumentations accounted for? Is everything that's missing listed as missing? Were all of the right chemical indicators put on the inside and outside of this tray? Was it put in the right sterilization product? Me looking at that and having a log shows that we're monitoring our quality in our sterile processing area. So routine audits can look like going through sterilization records. It can look like going through decontamination records. It could look like just watching people perform certain work at once a week or once a month. It really just depends on your facility. But the main focus of this is that it is routine. You're doing it on some type of routine and consistent basis, reoccurring basis, so that you're able to see changes over time. The use of standardized work procedures. This ensures consistency across shifts, right? So rather than everything being a free for all, and it's just, well, if I have 20 technicians in my department, they're all cleaning instruments 20 different ways. No, we have an established process of how we clean, how we process, how we sterilize, and everybody is doing work the same way. That way, I can ensure that my quality is consistent. It also helps when it comes to identifying breakdowns in procedures because if everybody's doing everything the same way, if for some reason I'm not getting the quality I need, if I'm looking at that procedure, I might be better able to see where somebody is making a mistake. Another one is to implement continuous training. I know I've talked about this before, but you guys will be required to do 12 continuing education Jesus Christ, 12 continuing education credits every year as a certified tech with HSPA. And in general, it's a good practice to help maintain quality to require continuous education because, as I've said, the SP department, the healthcare industry, it changes all the time. We are getting updates about what's going on. You are not an effective healthcare worker if you are using the same information today as you had from yesterday. I promise you. Now, I might be a little dramatic about yesterday, but if you've been doing the same thing for years and y'all will run into these people, okay? Smile when you see them that tell you're going to ask them a question and they say, well, we've been doing it like this since 75. All I hear you telling me is that you are not that great at doing your job because you have not kept yourself up on new and improving standards of care. Okay, if you're doing something the same way since 76, I'm going to look at you sideways. So get in the habit of and get thirsty for SPD education. There's tons of stuff even now that you guys can be taking advantage of. I know I talked about in the beginning of the course, but there's tons of free continuing education credits that you guys can use. And you don't have to be certified to take those classes. Y'all can do that shit right now. Okay. So if you want to find them, my suggestion is just go to Google and search free CEUs for sterile processing. You will find tons of websites that have video libraries, that have PDF classes set up for you to go through. And you, like I said, you're more than welcome to go through that stuff. Two of them that I think, or actually three that I think are really great resources. One is HealthMark. So if you guys look at the HealthMark education website, they have a great site set up for you guys. You'll make an account and you'll be able to go in there and look at videos and education on all topics of SPD. It's really good, I would say, too, for you guys that aren't already certified because it will allow you to get a visual of some of the stuff that I'm talking about that's like mysterious, right? I mean, you only got the picture of it in your book. They'll have videos and stuff on there for you on the website. Also, Steris, and that's STERIS, I believe. They have a really good, robust education library for SPD. And then lastly, if you are like a podcast person, I'm not. I get on podcasts a lot. Like I've been invited to a lot of them, but I don't like to listen to them. But if you get on podcasts a lot, there's just search for sterile processing podcast, y'all. There's so many of them right now. I know Beyond Clean does a lot of free CEU education, but there are so many. That's the one you be listening to. I used the healthcare magazine that I joined in school. That's awesome. That's awesome. And once you become certified, HSPA also puts out a magazine called The Process, I think, or Process This. I think it's Process This, where you will get that delivered to your house monthly if you're a member. I just got mine actually. I'll bring it in next class so y'all can see it. Okay, so chapter summary for 18. Quality assurance and sterile processing ensures that instruments and equipment meet safety and effectiveness standards. That's the whole point of it. The key components of quality include effectiveness, efficiency, consistency, safety, and compliance. Process improvement involves analyzing and refining workflows to minimize errors, right? So we're not just looking at it, but we're tweaking it over time to make sure that it is doing what we need it to do. Quality control indicators measure sterilization effectiveness, turnaround times, and decontamination efficiency. That's a whole really with anything we want to measure. Cross-functional teams collaborate to maintain high standards. Quality methodologies such as Six Sigma and ISO 9000 help to optimize sterile processing operations and different areas of central service, including decontamination, sterilization, packaging, and storage, require distinct quality controls, right? So I won't be able to look at the exact same thing in every single area, but I can find quality control indicators in every single area. And lastly, regulatory agencies like the Joint Commission, AMI, CMS, they all enforce quality assurance standards. All right, so key concepts for you guys for your CRCST exam is going to be the definition of the components of quality. I would definitely recommend making a flashcard for the components of quality. Definition of the process improvement, so that analyze root causes, implement change. I would make a card for that definition as well. The role of cross-functional teams in maintaining quality standards. You may see a question or two. You found something via the podcast. I love that. Yes. There's all kinds of stuff. When I started in SP Look back in my day, when I started in SPD, none of this stuff existed. There was one website called Crazy for Clean. And if y'all go find the Crazy for Clean website, you will see that it hasn't been updated since they had it for us back in the early 2000s, right? But now you guys have podcasts, you have videos on YouTube, you have libraries through these third-party companies. Use it all, honey. We want to be able to, for your test, make sure you can identify quality control indicators for each area. Okay? So those were up there in the notes. You can make a card for those. Six Sigma and the DMAIC process. I don't think you'll necessarily need to know it specifically for your test, but I would be, like I said, familiar with Six Sigma because I know it definitely came up in your textbook. The ISO 9000 standards, you just want to be familiar with the fact that the ISO 9000 standards are quality control standards. You don't necessarily have to know all of them. There's a crap ton of them. I bet that's probably not even in your tech, because I know a lot of y'all got 9. It's probably not even going that deep in there. Quality considerations in different central service areas. So the same as we were looking at quality control indicators for sterilization, decontaminant packaging, you want to be able to identify those for sterile storage as well. It's kind of redundant. I'll update that for the notes. And then regulatory agencies, y'all favorites, that word salad, TJC, AMI, CMS, OSHA. Make a note in your quality section of flashcards that TJC in this little section back here. Let me show you before I get to repeating too much. You want to have just some general flashcards about this right here, that they require, what they require as far as quality control metrics. It may or may not show up on your exam. I would just want to be familiar with it. Okay. All right. So we got 2 minutes left. Unless y'all can hang out a little bit longer, we'll go through these multiple choice questions. And then when we come back on Monday, we'll go through chapters 19 and 20. I already have those notes ready, so I'll get them published on the website for you guys tonight before I leave out of here. Okay, so number 1, what is the definition of quality in sterile processing? Is it the speed at which sterilization cycles are completed? The degree to which a product or service meets standards and customer expectations? Is it C, the number of instruments processed in a single shift? Or D, the overall cost of sterilization procedures? Which one of them is actually a definition of quality? I cannot believe that we're almost done. Wake it up, YouTube. Wake it up. Y'all be wanting to throw me on like a podcast. Y'all just be somewhere listening now. I need your participation. Friend said B. All right. That is actually correct. B. It's the degree to which the product or service meets the standards and customer expectations. Number 2, which of the following is not a component of quality? Effectiveness, compliance, consistency, or profitability? Which one of those has nothing to do with the quality of your instrumentation? Somebody might care about it, but it ain't got nothing to do. Thank you, Miss Latoya. Profitability. The whether or not we make money on it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not it's a high quality product. Number 3, what is the purpose of process improvement in sterile processing? Is it A, to increase the number of sterilization cycles per hour? B, to identify and correct inefficiencies and errors? C, to reduce training time for new employees? Or D, to eliminate the need for quality monitoring? Why do we even care about quality and process improvement in SPD? All right, see the B's. It's to identify and correct inefficiencies and errors. We don't want to be going along thinking everything is fine and we actually have a problem. That's what that process is there for. What is number 4? What is the primary focus of Six Sigma in quality management? Is it A, to reduce errors and process variation? Is it B, to increase production speeds? C, lowering supply costs? Or D, expanding storage space? Why would they be using the Six Sigma methodology for process improvement? Yes, the answer is A, reducing errors and process variation. Now, these other ones could get tricky from the perspective that those might be things that end up happening because we used our Six Sigma methodology and we made some improvements. We might see an increase in production speed. We might see the lowering of supply costs because we identified a new product to buy that's cheaper, or we eliminated some things we don't actually need to use. We may even see ourselves expand in storage space because we got rid of some stuff we didn't need, or we reorganize it in a way that works better for us. Those could be products that happen because we did process improvement. But the point of Six Sigma is to reduce those errors and process variation. And then the last one is, which organization establishes international quality management standards such as ISO 9000? I actually didn't talk about this. Is it A, FDA? Is it B, ISO? Is it C, OSHA? Or is it D, CDC? Well, I guess I did. I just didn't go into detail. Who makes the ISO standard? This should be the easiest one. Oop, I seen the A. I seen the C. Oh no, come on now, y'all. It's in the answer is in the question. Who makes the ISO standards? Is the FDA making the ISO standards? Right? It's B. It's B. ISO is making their ISO 9000 standards. All right, so that's that. Let me pull this up for you. Hold on. Let me reinforce it a little bit. All right. Reject them all. Here we go. Okay, now let me change my screen over here. I know, friend. It's all right. We learning. We learning. Let me show you this ISO website. This is also why I encourage you guys to look up these organizations. Because when you go and you see what they're doing, the more it's going to sink into you. Okay, so ISO is the organization. And ISO stands for the International Organization of Standardization. Big fancy words for there's an international group of a multidisciplinary team that gets together and creates standards for everybody else to use. They bring in global experts together to agree on the best way of doing things and ISO standards cover multiple industries. So this is not just for healthcare, okay? So just to give you guys an example, the real big thing with this, let me go back so I'll show you these 9000 standards. Okay, so ISO 9000 is specifically about quality management. So you have ISO, the organization, the International Standards Organization, and then you have 9000, which represents their quality management records. There's multiple books inside of ISO 9000, but essentially this is a guide for organizations that are asking how to improve their quality of their products and their services, okay? So make sure you guys pay attention to the fact, is it black? Is it black still? Remember, I'll put the notes back up, that ISO 9000 was one of the methods that you can use for quality methodologies. The other one was the Six Sigma. Okay? Okay, great. All right, so hopefully I made that clear. ISO 9000 is a standard given to us by ISO on how we can do quality management, which might look like that identify, analyze, implement corrective actions, audit, right? Okay. Any questions for me before I go? I'll be thirsty for y'all to ask me questions about the stuff that you're reading, and then I get here and y'all be like, I don't question. Okay, no worries. It'll be up. It should come up as soon as I press end stream. It should be available to you. All right. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday at 4:45. I'm gonna try to come back to this space because y'all didn't have no internet issues for me this time, did y'all? It didn't freeze or anything. If this works, we're just gonna work it to the end. Okay, great. All right, so at least we know we have our stable internet, and then like I said, I'm gonna sit right here and do the links for the next couple classes so that those are up for you guys to go ahead and subscribe to. In the in between time, please do me a favor. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, like or interact with the videos, leave a comment, share with somebody, something. Go on to TikTok, do the same thing. And then I'll see y'all on Monday. Thank you so much. You too, Brienne. You have a great evening. Bye, Latoya. Bye, Chrisette. Bye, Tiki